Welcome into the Gramlich and McLean podcast, presented by Ingles, the official supermarket of Gramlich and McLean. This is a special bonus episode here, Eric McLean, because the ACC schedule has just been released. Somehow, Mac just released it on television, and then here he is.
Already back in my hotel room, cranking this out with you. I mean, it's
How did you do that?
TV magic. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know.
Amazing. Well, Mac, I know I love that we're able to do this and kind of have some more content after y'all's show. Obviously, we hope everyone watched the show to see the week by week. But we've got, 17 schedules? We're not going to dive deep into every schedule. That's more for the television people.
That's
We've
right.
got some fun nuggets. We're going to get into some of the big brands and just give some thoughts on these schedules, Mac.
Yeah, it's first of all, it's good to be back in Bristol. I'm here like twice a year now with us being on the road. And,
Oh, yeah.
you get to come up here all the time, and we kind of just missed your other crew. I know you were calling a game on Sunday, and I saw Ivory was up here and all of them. So it's funny. There's that weird crossover season where we're just all back and forth. But great to be up here. I'm glad we're not getting snowed in. Knock on wood, nothing happens, but it looks like nothing on the radar. But here we are. It's football season. Again, we're back already. And I'll tell you this quick story, KG. We were down in Charleston this past weekend celebrating my brother-in-law, Cannon, his 30th birthday, big 30. And, that was the first time I've been down there in a long time, before Christmas. We were there for Christmas, but before that, not since August. So we saw a lot of people that I hadn't seen in a while. And everybody's like, oh, great to see you. How's the off season? You get some time off, all this. I said, well, actually, get on a plane at 7 a.m. Tomorrow. So no, we're right back into
Yep.
it. So that's kind of how this college football thing goes. And just glad we know the schedule. Glad we know people can plan. If you're having a fall wedding, please, God, do it on a bye weekend for your team. If not, just wait until the spring, please.
And maybe plan some births, if people need to
Maybe.
figure out what they're
Just do it
doing.
right in the middle of it. Some people like I did,
Yeah.
Khaki didn't do it. Khaki, just do it right in the middle. It's all good.
Yeah, it'll work out. But yeah, you can kind of plan around that. And yes, Mac, I'm so glad that we have these schedules. Completely agree. Okay, I want to start with this. Before we're going to talk in depth on Clemson, SMU, Miami, Syracuse, UNC, Florida State, NC State, Virginia Tech. So we're going to really get into those. But I want to start here. When we talk about, who has the hardest schedule, whatever, and of course we're projecting because it's only January. Mac, there are two teams in the ACC that play Clemson, SMU, and Miami.
Look at you doing some digging.
Yeah, put my pencil in my ear. I'm ready to go. There are only two teams. One of them I know you can guess, Mac, because one of them is Syracuse. Because Syracuse, I don't even think it's a debate.
Yeah.
Has the most difficult schedule. By the way, Mac, Syracuse plays all three of those teams and Notre Dame.
Of course.
So,
Of course.
Godspeed. Do you have a guess? I mean, I know you've been looking at the schedule. Who else plays all three of those teams?
Yeah. No, I don't. I would just waste time. I have no clue.
Louisville.
It's so funny. Louisville. Oh, they get a
Louisville
schedule.
Yeah, so if you look at Louisville, and they play all three of those teams in the second half of the season.
Wow.
Louisville has a pretty cupcakey start before their bye week. They play Miami October 17th. They play Clemson November 14th, and then SMU November 22nd. They play SMU and Clemson back to back. So there are only two teams that drew those three. Now, will those be the three best teams in the league next year? We don't know. But as we're projecting looking forward, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that is fascinating. And shout out, 2 years in a row, much more difficult schedule for the Cards than that first one, that magical run that they had. But if you're going to do it, we're kind of jumping into it right here. If you're going to have that, you want it at the back when you're probably feeling your best, and when your team is hopefully ascending into that championship phase as they remember November. And so, but that's tough. I mean, having all those is brutal.
One that's somewhat similar, Boston College has Clemson, SMU, and Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So they do have those three. And then, Mac, there is one team, and I'll tell you, one team that doesn't play either Clemson, SMU, or Miami.
Come on.
They avoid all three, and that is Wahoo Wah, Virginia.
Wow.
They
so Virginia
avoid
making
all
it to the ACC championship. Shout out to Virginia.
There you go.
That's awesome.
And what's crazy about Virginia's schedule, and I will talk about this with Virginia, they get a bye week before Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
And Virginia Tech does not get a bye week before that game. So much going on there, Mac. But hey,
A lot of drama.
yeah, a lot of drama. So I just want to throw that out there. Let's start. We're going to go through these brands. Let's start with the reigning ACC champions, okay? Let's start with Clemson's schedule. Mac, obviously we know opening with LSU, that stands out to everybody. And finishing with South Carolina, that stands out. What else do you see on this Clemson schedule?
Yeah, well, looking at their first bye or first away game, going to Georgia Tech, a place that, historically can be a house of horrors for Clemson. I think back, in my, time playing back in my day, really before we kind of changed it a little bit, but we did lose, my junior year down there. And it's just it's a weird place. It really is. Because when they get juiced up, it's loud and crazy. I know it's tiny and it's one of the oldest stadiums, whatever, but they like themselves some football, and that's going to be a gritty football team. I think Georgia
Mhm.
Tech is going to bully a lot of people. There was just this list. I'm going to peel back a curtain here for you guys that came out. I think On3 posted it. I don't know who specifically, one of their analysts or whatever, writers. And they did their top 25 quarterbacks. And Haynes King was not on that list. And I'm just sitting there looking like, huh? Kevin
What?
Jennings wasn't either. I said, what? Like, did these guys like stop playing football? Did they move on? Are they playing another position? Are they not quarterbacks? And so I sent that to
Yeah.
Coach T, and he said, "Thanks for the fuel to the fire, brother. Appreciate that." So Georgia Tech is always going to be tough, but now with their new coach, it's going to be even tougher. We have the Fran Brown Dabo Sweeney Bowl finally.
Need
The
it.
guy that got them to the championship, essentially got them to the playoff. Syracuse going to come to the Death Valley there, and excited to see that. We've got a rematch, of SMU of the ACC
Mhm.
championship in Death Valley. Again, a really tough place to play. That'll be kind of their, welcome party, if you will. I know it's later in the season, like week 7 or something like that, but always a great game to see that. But really, it's the finish for me. When you
Yeah.
look at October 18th, that SMU game on, you got a bye after that, leading into Duke, who's going to be physical, good team, new quarterback coming in. Florida State is what it is. It's a rivalry. Who knows what happens at Louisville? You got Furman snuck in there, and then at South Carolina. So, Clemson ending with a really kind of nice schedule there in regards to getting ready and being prepared kind of for that championship phase. All the while, I totally didn't even mention this: 2 away games back to back at North Carolina, the Fighting Bill Belichick's, and then up to the Fighting Bill O'Brien. So you're basically playing NFL games 2 weeks in a row on the road.
Yeah, I think this is probably Clemson's most interesting schedule in a while.
Yeah.
And I
Larry
think
Williams
that's
the other day told me he thinks this is Dabo's most difficult schedule he's ever had.
wow, ever. Okay. That's good to know, even when like Florida State was top five and all that.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, I think there's just a lot of intrigue here. I think it's good for Clemson for season ticket holders, you know? I mean, this is the year you want to get season tickets. You've
That's
got
right.
LSU, Troy, Syracuse, SMU, Duke, Florida State, Furman. That's a pretty good list there. Syracuse, I think, is going to be a sneaky, really hyped up matchup. Love the Dabo, Bill Belichick matchup. I mean, that is going to be hyped up galore. People are going to be talking about it. I like what you're saying, Mac. I think the finish is really important because your buy date is a little earlier. You have that buy at the end of October, and then it's 5 straight games,
Yeah.
3 at home, and then you finish with at Louisville, Furman, South Carolina. So we'll learn a lot in that final stretch, and of course, we'll learn a lot with LSU. I was highlighting some of the marquee non-conference games. I feel like there's nothing better than Clemson LSU when it comes to just two big brands and two, going to be ranked teams. There's some other really interesting ones, but Clemson LSU is definitely the highlight of the non-conference.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. And you look also on that day, I believe Texas is at Ohio State.
Yeah,
So you're looking at 2 massive games. Of course, that'll be on Fox if it's at Ohio State, but this clearly should be the ABC prime time. Who knows if game day will, want to double up with Big Noon, or are they going to be a
mm,
standalone, in Death Valley? So it is. And it's obviously a great series with LSU. Clemson will go there the following season. So it's always fun. You love to see those. And, Brian Kelly, like 0 for a billion in season openers. So the favor certainly in tied with the Clemson Tigers here. And just to see that new look defense, I mean, you're going to see
yeah,
it right away. Does it work? Is it a good fit? Are you happy with it? And, it's just for all these teams, it'll be very trendy. Week 1 and week 2, just like it always is, because the ACC does a very good job of scheduling out of conference. That's when you shape a narrative. That's when you change
mm,
the brand. And are you gonna help us? Or are you gonna hurt us come playoff time where we're sitting here begging for the third and second team in this conference to get a look? Or are you taking care of business and it's a no-brainer saying, oh, look what they've done. Look what this league has done in the out of conference. It's vital. It's
yeah.
so, so important.
You're exactly right, Mac. And we'll get to some of these other big out of conferences. Let's look at SMU because that's a little bit of a different opener. They open with East Texas A&M, which
Didn't know that was a college. Didn't know
I'm
that was
from
like
Texas,
when they
Mac,
could
and I've
compete.
never heard of that place. I want to say they changed their name recently. You know what's funny? East Texas A&M, they open with SMU, and then week 2 they go to Florida State. So good luck to those guys.
I mean, you
Um,
know what? Just bring them in the ACC. Let's keep expanding. Them and UConn. Let's get them in.
ETA&M, come on in. And then SMU will have Baylor week 2. So SMU doesn't have a massive non-con. They have TCU, the rivalry game,
Yeah.
week 4. The stretch that I'm looking at with SMU is that middle of the year. They have back-to-back road games, which, you say that, but you got to think about it a little more when you talk about SMU or Cal or Stanford having back-to-back. They go to Clemson, then they go to Wake Forest. I wonder if they double
Just
up and just stay. Yeah, I feel like they might, but there always seems to be that hangover post Clemson,
yeah.
Wake Forest, new coach, new identity there. Then they have Miami right after that. So
Right.
that middle stretch is really what I'm looking at for SMU.
Yeah, and then you're going to Boston College. So
Yeah.
it's just, it is tough. Anytime that we're talking about kind of the three newbies, not so much anymore with having a full year, but that's always a thing. Travel is a bigger piece of this. There's more going on. I do like how you have a bye after that. So you get a breather, kind of after this, kind of tough stretch, as you mentioned, and it is late in the season. I've always gone back and forth on buys, KG, because even
Right.
as a player, like it was just a breather for us, right? Like it's just like, oh my gosh, this is great. Maybe go home, maybe just relax, watch football, whatever. But there is something to if you're on a roll and now you have to stop and you're just like, I wish we could just keep playing, wish we could keep going. It is going to be fascinating. And the growth of Kevin Jennings is going to be fantastic. Can't wait to see the next step that he can take and where he really goes. And I think a lot of people similar to that list I just brought up that he or Haynes King weren't on, a lot of people may be, writing him off a little bit based on that playoff performance. But I think that's silly. I think that's silly to do. I think he is going to be square in, the discussion for the Heisman Trophy when it's all said and done, and just a guy that's going to continue to grow. Now, SMU probably has some holes they need to fill, with the transfer portal. All they lost. They're losing some great leadership, skill players, defense specifically, that you got to go and get and replenish and refill and maybe get a couple of bigger offensive linemen. I think they've already done that. But just seeing how they reload in this new world, that you're able to do that with the transfer portal. So excited for SMU, and I see a lot of wins on this schedule. And, what are the Ponies going to do year 2 after going undefeated in ACC play in the regular season and getting to the conference championship year 1?
And they draw Clemson and Miami this year, so a little
Yeah, a little
different
different. A little
than
different.
year 1. So we'll see how that goes for Miami. They also have Louisville on there. They have Syracuse,
Yeah.
some of the better teams in the league. Let's talk about Miami, Mac. Miami's schedule is very interesting to me. They open with Notre Dame, massive game, and that's going to be Sunday. So you're going to have all these big games Saturday, then Miami, Notre Dame, then North Carolina, TCU. And then after Notre Dame, Mac, they just take a trip around Florida. They don't leave the state until November 1st? I think that's right. They have Bethune-Cookman, South Florida, Florida at home, bye week at Florida State, bye week. And then they have Louisville and Stanford at home. They don't leave the state until November 1st. That's kind of nice for Miami. Their longest trip is going to be to SMU, which, just doing that once isn't that bad.
Yeah.
And they're going to get it. They really can truly grab the bragging rights of Florida, which they did this year. When you play Florida, Florida State, South Florida, you're playing all the big names. So this bodes well for Miami from a travel and kind of playing at home perspective.
Yeah, it is fascinating when you look at it for all those reasons right there, and not leaving your state, until well in the season, until the back third of
November.
the season there, which is crazy to look at. But also interesting to me, we were just kind of talking about the buys. Florida bye, Florida State bye. So you have like this
Yeah.
weird stop, start, stop, start. Now I believe Georgia Tech was the team that did that last year. There's a handful of teams that have that instance this year.
Hmm.
That it is interesting just to see what that does to a team. And now I do like that it is after Florida / before Florida State, and after Florida State, that 2-game run there to recoup. I mean, those are going to be physical, emotional, daunting games. So you need kind of to breathe and going into Louisville. But there is something about that stop and starting so close together. The good thing is you have a veteran quarterback who, knock on wood, we think is going to be fully available and ready to go in Carson Beck.
Hmm.
But just for the team to kind of come together, have a little time, and maybe that's a turning point. If the season's not quite going the way they want to, by that October 11th bye week, that's rally the troops, get together. All right, let's go on a run. Let's go. Let's figure this thing out. But I think with the talent Miami has, I think that sets up really nicely, for them and a nice stretch to end the year.
Yeah, and I think we'll learn a lot week 1 with Notre Dame.
Question.
If you can
For
win that
both teams.
game.
Who's Notre Dame going to be? Who's
Exactly.
Miami with Beck going to be?
Exactly. So they're going to look so different, but
Yeah.
whoever wins that game is going to have a really kind of a leg up with the start. Miami also finishes with 2 road games back to back last 2 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
That could be interesting when it's coming
Old
down
Big
to
East foes at Virginia Tech, at
yeah,
Pitt, and really 2 places. Miami probably doesn't want to be
right.
late November in scary Blacksburg and Pittsburgh. I mean, 2 places they could be nasty. With weather and cold, and who knows if there's a little snow. Maybe quiet now, but not great. Not great.
Yeah. It's an interesting schedule for Miami. Let's talk about the Syracuse of it all, Mac. This schedule is insane.
It's got to be one of the hardest in the country. I mean,
Who
it's
put this together?
right.
Okay. You open with Tennessee, okay, in Atlanta. Aflac
That's your
kickoff
own
game.
fault. That's your fault. You
Yeah,
scheduled that.
you did that. All right. UConn, Colgate. All right.
Toothpaste. Thank God we have
Okay.
toothpaste there.
At Clemson, okay. Duke. Again, I
Oh,
think Duke's going to be pretty good.
I mean, team. Yeah.
At SMU, then you get your bye. Pitt at Georgia Tech. Again, we think Georgia Tech's going to be pretty good.
Oh,
North Carolina at home, and then the finish at Miami, bye, at Notre Dame, and then Boston College. So they have 1 home game in November, and they only have 2 home games past that mid-October mark because they're playing 2 quick home games with UConn and Colgate. This is a very difficult schedule. I don't think it's even, as we said earlier, I don't think it's even a debate. I think Syracuse has the most difficult schedule in the ACC.
well, for sure the ACC. It's not a
Yeah.
question, but my question is in the country. Like, who is this stacking up against? Because you're playing Tennessee, playoff team, Clemson, playoff team, SMU, playoff team, Miami, first team out, Notre
Notre
Dame,
Dame.
championship game. And then add in a 9-win Duke, a 8 or 9 win Georgia Tech. I mean, great. I think UConn won 9 games. So have fun, Syracuse. I know last year was awesome. Kyle McCord ain't there. It's going to be fascinating to see. And if the young transfer they have coming in is the guy, I mean, trial by fire, baptized by
Yeah.
fire. I mean, this dude's going to be going quickly, and a lot expected of him. And, we talked with the Axe Man and Brent Axe up in Syracuse, and he gets it. It sounds like the fans are going to understand. If you go bowling with this schedule, it is essentially what you did last year. Like, you're in a really good spot if you're able to do that and hopefully continue to grow your team. And who knows, maybe the culture shows up in a couple. Maybe the growth and development of your program shows up and you win some of those games. But it's going to be very, very difficult, very hard to do. But if there's a guy that loves to be doubted and can thrive in that environment, Fran Brown's got to be it.
Yeah. The other thing that's crazy about Syracuse, I'm not sure I've ever seen this before. Look at those opponents you mentioned, all those opponents that were in the playoff. At Notre Dame, at Miami, at SMU, at Clemson,
And
and
neutral.
then Tennessee neutral. You don't get any of those teams at home. That is
You think they
just
wrote you think Syracuse is going to write a letter like to the ACC and just be like, why? Why us?
I mean, maybe
It's
because
brutal. It's brutal.
that's one of the best things Syracuse has going for them is the dome and the environment that can be in there. Whew, Syracuse. All right, I'm already worried for you.
Bless you.
Bless. All right, let's talk about North Carolina with Bill Belichick. Very interesting to have Labor Day night. It's the ACC and the Big 12 going at it with UNC and TCU. Again, not sure really what UNC is going to look like. Very honestly don't know, but that's going to be fascinating. All the eyes will be
Right.
on that game. Bill Belichick, all that. I think the ratings will be fantastic. You host Clemson, big opportunity there. You got to take the trip out to California, but it's after a bye week. And then you end the year with just kind of like a tour of North Carolina. At Wake Forest, Duke, at NC State, all massive games. But Mac, it's so funny when we talk about the schedule because I just have no clue what to expect with Bill Belichick. No
No,
idea.
we don't. I mean, from a roster coach, I mean, the coaching, you know, squad is coming together slowly, but it's just like there's just a ton of unknowns, with that team and who they're going to be, what they're going to be, what they're going to look like. But we're going to see it as standalone on Monday Night Football. Welcome back, Bill, to that time slot, and then they have a couple of standalone games on Friday nights as well. So we're going to see them. They're going to be out there, for everyone to kind of watch. And is this thing going to work? Is it going to be a bad experience? Who knows? It's going to be interesting to see. But when I look at it and just kind of going through, that gauntlet of that Monday night standing alone and then turning around and playing right away on Saturday, like that's hard at Charlotte. By the way, what are we doing? Going to
Oh my
Charlotte?
gosh, yeah, I'm realizing that
It's
now.
so silly. It's so
What?
silly. And then Richmond, whatever, great at UCF. So you've got
Mm.
another one there, open week, and then Clemson open week again. So they are dealing with the two opens, kind of staggered in between there. So it'll be fascinating, that whole deal. But I think the most interesting piece, KG, to me about North Carolina's schedule, they have the state championship playoffs to finish
Yeah.
the year. You're going at Wake, you got Duke at home, and then you finish at NC State, who's had your number for however many years in a row now. That's crazy that it ends that way for them, and wrapping that thing up, you're going to have a nice ring that says state champs, or, what are you doing in those? So an interesting schedule, to say the least.
I'm glad you're pointing out these bye week
Yeah.
stretches because I honestly didn't notice them as much when I was first looking at it, and now
Yeah.
it looks so odd.
It
Like
is odd. It is odd.
that's not ideal
I don't think,
for a team like UNC.
yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. But, we'll see, I guess. We'll find
Got
out.
to deal with it. All right, Mac, let's look at Florida State's schedule. They open with a little team called Alabama. So that's going to be fascinating. We're using the word fascinating a lot because we just have no clue what that's going to look like.
Oh,
No clue. Then they play East Texas A&M, similar to SMU. Then they have a very early open date. What's interesting to me about FSU's schedule is the last four. Just one home game in your final four games at Clemson, Virginia Tech, at NC State, at Florida. That's quite the stretch for Florida State to end the year.
yeah, it really is. And the good thing about, you're opening with Alabama. Hopefully you've got a brand new rocking stadium that is sick and there's rebuy-in and it's loaded and
Yeah.
everybody's super excited.
Look, if there's one thing I know about Florida State fans, they're going to show up for that game. Like
Sure.
it's going to be packed. Now, what happens after that, we'll
Yeah.
see. But
We'll
that game will be lit.
Alabama losing a lot, losing Jalen Milroe, ton of people in the portal, all these different things that they're going with. What is Alabama going to look like? This is a new world of, we're seeing, teams kind of up and down, just depending on the talent and who they're able to bring in. And you have Tommy Castellanos, you have a mobile guy. And I hope with Gus Malzahn and Coach Mike Norvell, they allow him to be who he is, which I think, I know that is what's going to happen. Allow him to create, let him be that guy. And how fun can this be? You've got some great receivers coming in. You got a couple of transfers. You got really big guys. I mean, I was looking at the pass catchers, KG, and it's like 6'7", 2 or 3 6'6", a couple 6'5", and 2 or 3 6'4". Like we've got some guys out there that are big, nasty dudes. Can they catch? We'll see. But they're going to have some size advantage out on the edge. And can Thomas, really get that back shoulder fade? Things of that nature. I can't wait to see what the offense truly looks like on top of the great running backs that you have. People are probably, forgetting about, three, Cam Davis, young freshman that is freaky, really fun to watch. And again, now he's probably going to be more so the guy and heavily involved there. Of course, you play Miami. Of course, you play Clemson and then Florida. So really playing those big three to add in Alabama, this is a gauntlet in itself as well. And maybe in regards to schedule strength, you start putting them up there with Syracuse as well, Alabama, Clemson, Miami, Florida on there. It's going to be tough because I think Florida's going to be much improved as well with DJ Lagaway and the things that he can do creatively from the quarterback position.
I agree, Mac. I think you'd have to put Florida State in that upper tier. And plus they have the trip to Stanford.
Right.
So they got to go all the way out there. That you add that into just the level.
Bring your
of
own fans. There's not going to be a lot there. Bring your own fans.
Yeah, Mac remembers that experience. Okay, let's talk about NC State here, Eric Macklin. There's only one game on this whole schedule that I put an exclamation point next to on the whole
ECU?
thing.
Is it ECU?
It was the ECU game because look,
Shout out to ECU. Make it.
you just lost to them in the bowl game. There's, interesting dynamics in the state of North Carolina with ECU. You can't like losing to ECU twice in a row. What does that do for your program? Dave Doran, just how's everybody feeling after that, Mac? That I think of all these opening games, there are a lot that are very important. There may not,
The trophy
I
holder?
mean, there may not be one that's more important for a head coach
Sure.
than Dave Doran in that game. So
Yeah.
you've got that.
Yeah.
Then you don't have a bye week until October 18th. So you're rolling, but you are playing ECU early Thursday night, right? So you've got time.
Yeah.
Notre Dame in the middle of that schedule. You have Miami late. I mean, there's definitely some winnable games on this schedule for NC State, but I really can't even look past ECU. Like, that's where my eyes go.
I know. Yeah, it's 100%. I mean, I didn't think I'd be sitting here highlighting and same thing as you, marking the ECU game, but it's
Right?
true. And there's some hatred there. And they got a massive fight. Like a referee's face got split open in that game. I mean, it's going to be a brawl and it's going to be physical and you got to be ready. And, I think the development of CJ Bailey is going to be fascinating.
Mhm.
The new, defense and offense that they're, potentially going to be showing, who knows? But I do know that Coach Dave Doran has a great program, a great culture, and it's one of those things you got to saddle up and get back. We missed on some guys. We got to get back to it
Yeah.
and continue to make this happen and see what they're going to look like. But yeah, a fascinating schedule. Again, when I see at Duke, at Notre Dame, at Miami, and then to finish with Florida State and North Carolina at home, it's going to be a tough one. And I think this is going to really challenge again that culture that is in place and what do they want to do there.
Let's talk about one more schedule a little more in depth, and then we'll run through the rest of them and give you at least a nugget. Let's talk about Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech fans, we know you're here, all right? And we're here for you. Interesting opening, okay? You open with South Carolina. And that's Sunday night, Aflac kickoff game in Atlanta. South Carolina obviously returning a lot. Lenora Sellers, he's pretty good. Clemson fans would attest to that. And then right after South Carolina, you have Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
So you're doing that home and home, returning it with Vanderbilt. Pavia's back for his 17th year. Revenge spot for Virginia Tech, but a pretty good Vanderbilt team. Old Dominion Wofford. So you start with that neutral site, but then you have 3 straight home games in September before you go to NC State. The schedule you still have a good amount of home games later on, so it seems to work out well. But I think we'll learn a lot about Virginia Tech with those first 2 weeks, Mac.
Yeah, I mean, me too. And it's one of those things where you just see in it's just like last year, and then some because you're playing a really quality. I mean, South Carolina might be in the top 10. They might be
Yeah.
top 15 for sure when you look at preseason and what the expectations are, for that team and how good they're going to be. As much as I hate to say that, but they are, and it's going to be a big test. And where can you put yourself immediately? With back-to-back games against the SEC. One that beat Alabama last year in Vanderbilt and another that, beat Clemson and all these different things. So the opportunity, as it always is, as we mentioned already, is there to really set a standard and to make some noise, for this team. And this is a great one. You should have some veteran pieces. You have your quarterback in Kyron Jones, I believe. I don't think he's gone anywhere. Okay, let's go to work. You got a new strength coach. I don't think they've hired a DC yet, but it sounds like Bud Foster's going to be involved in some way. You've got Coach Pry, who obviously was one of the best DCs around. So I just, we see Virginia Tech make some great strides, and then it's just like straight down, and then like a little bit, and then down. And it's just like, let's get some consistency. Let's be who we are. Let's figure it out. Let's want to be there. Let's want to win and really make it happen, because this is a tough schedule. And you mentioned there's kind of some fluff in the middle. But then, October 11th, you got at Georgia Tech, physical team, Louisville, physical good team, at Florida State, Miami, and then you finish with your war, as you mentioned, Virginia having a bye before that. Yeah. So it's going to be tough, but again, you have some veteran pieces that just need to take that next step and get it done.
Did you know that Ingles sells more organics than any other store? Or that they run their own dairy? Or that they only serve USDA choice and prime meat? Did you know that they have more local craft beer than any place else? Or that they have energy smart stores? Or that they professionally slice and package imported cheese from Europe? Did you know about their giant international aisle, local farm partnerships, curbside pickup, wine department? Or that they donate 3,956 meals a day to local food banks? Well, now you do. It's all in the bag. Ingles, low prices, love the savings.
Okay, Mac, rapid fire. Give me a nugget about this schedule. What do you think about Boston College?
Come on. Yeah, let's just ping pong. Let's go back and forth. I'll start with BC here. At Michigan State, you're returning the favor. We were there last year at that game. It was crazy. Game winner, finished with excitement. People are sprinting on the field. I think that's a really big deal there. But this stretch right here of Clemson, UConn, at Louisville, Notre Dame, SMU, Georgia Tech is bonkers. I mean, we're going to have to find out who you are in a hurry. You obviously like the quarterback you did. You kicked another one out and kept who you got. So, it'll be interesting to see there, but that's a tough stretch for BC.
Agreed. I'm going to look at Cal. Honestly, I found Cal's schedule to be maybe the most boring of everyone's on this list.
What, Minnesota and at Oregon State? Are you
Yeah, it just doesn't really do it for me. At San Diego State I'm questioning that. I think this is a manageable schedule for Cal. I just have no idea with the departure of Mendoza, like what.
5-star. They got a 5-star they stole from Oregon coming in.
Okay.
He probably is going to be the guy.
I'm excited about that then. So you got to start off at Oregon State. You draw SMU, but it's not till the very last game of the season. So Cal, I'm a little bored with the schedule, but I hope I'm not bored with your play.
That's right. They'll make it happen. They'll make it happen. All right, Georgia Tech. We've talked about this team a lot. They always have a brutal schedule. And guess what? Clemson's back on it, and so is Georgia. So you've got those two, kind of superpowers. You start off at Colorado, post Sanders' children leaving, and the Heisman Trophy winner. So what is it when the dust settles?
That's interesting, though.
Who's it going to be? The hype is going to be crazy, and it's going to be juiced up. Very excited, a lot leaning into that game. But who are they going to be? And what do you want to do? What kind of statement can you make? Because even if Colorado stinks, it's going to be a big deal week one leading into it, and really excited. So they obviously have a great opportunity here. But like I said, it always is. It's a brutal schedule, like your quarterback, like your team, like everybody you've kept. It's got to translate to some of these bigger wins, beating Clemson, beating Georgia, beating Syracuse. It's going to be interesting to see, can they get those done and have more consistency around them.
Maybe a little less brutal than years past, though, for Georgia Tech. I think it's a little more manageable.
Could be, yeah.
I think we skipped Duke, which, we're so sorry about that. Let me talk about Duke here, Mac. Duke they have the Tulane game, which is very interesting with the quarterback coming over. And then I'm not sure how many other teams have this, but it stood out to me. Duke has 2 instances of back-to-back road games. So they've got at Syracuse, at Cal, back-to-back. Yeah. They're 2 trips. And then at Clemson, at UConn, back-to-back after their bye date. So I don't love that for Duke. That seems like a lot. They play 3 of their first 4 games at home. So then you just don't have a lot of home games for the rest of the schedule. But we'll see. I'm interested in Duke. I'm very intrigued with what they can do with the schedule.
I am too. Again, you talk about culture, you talk about team, going out and getting a $8 million quarterback, allegedly. Let's see what that ROI looks like. Let's make it happen. And then let's get it going there. You talk about, not super interesting schedule. Louisville, you mentioned they play Miami, they play Clemson, they play SMU, but then after that, it goes downhill a little bit. And who knows? I mean, this is all projection. This could be the hardest schedule in the league based on how teams perform and what they do. But Eastern Kentucky, James Madison, Bowling Green, gross.
Really cupcakey start.
Disgusting. Very SEC-like, but I guess, okay, cool, great. I don't like that at all, but win those games, they should squarely be undefeated marching into Pittsburgh, and who knows what this Pittsburgh team's going to be like, and I'm sure we're about to talk about them in a second, just to see, all the guys they have coming back. You got a new quarterback, Miller Moss, coming in. You have some key pieces. Again, Louisville, it just feels like every year in regards to consistent players, and they've got great running backs. I know those running backs are going to be good, but then around them, it's like, I don't know who's going to be there. It's all new people. It's a whole new, kind of group coming in. So, we'll see. But the brutal stretch, as you mentioned, one of 2 teams that play Miami, Clemson, and SMU. They're at Miami, they're at SMU. That's going to be difficult. And then Clemson to get their get back, right? They lost to Louisville for the first time ever in Death Valley, a place they rarely ever lose. For their 2 losses at home. So it's a brutal thing that Clemson's going to have that revenge on their mind for sure.
All 3 of those games, Miami, Clemson, SMU, come after their bye week. All 3 come after October 17th. So that's interesting for Louisville. When it comes to Pittsburgh, let's talk about Pitt's schedule. Duquesne, Central Michigan, at West Virginia. Obviously, the West Virginia game is huge.
Brawl, baby.
Yeah. Then they have a bye. What stands out for me is the last stretch there, the bottom. You have the bye date on November 8th. Then you have Notre Dame at Georgia Tech, host Miami.
Yeah.
That is quite the stretch right there. And we saw how Pitt finished last year. It was not great. So I think we'll learn, a good bit about this program and kind of what's going on in Pittsburgh in that final stretch.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go, KG. Big stretch here to finish the show.
Okay.
Stanford. Okay. Let's go. Stanford.
What you got?
They open at Hawaii. So I'm really excited.
Cool.
Talking this into existence. The huddle will be there. Very excited. Can't wait to take our Hawaii trip. Week 0. Really looking forward to that. Hopefully our bosses see this and they're like spitting out their coffee when they're drinking, like, whoa, what are you talking about? Putting that out there. But playing BYU, that's a big deal. Anytime you're at a conference, you're playing another Power 4 team. It's important, and you got to get that done. So, it'll be interesting to see just who they're going to be. Don't have Ashton Daniels. They have that young recruit who I can't think of his name right now, who was a freshman last year that people think is one of the most important recruits they've had since Andrew Luck. So is it his turn? Is he ready to go? And, just what is this team going to look like?
Well said, Mac. Okay, let's talk about Virginia. I think the most interesting part of Virginia's schedule, well, 2 things. They don't draw Clemson, SMU, or Miami. They're the one team that doesn't draw any of those teams.
Yep.
So that's very beneficial for them. And then they have a bye week before Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech doesn't. I don't know how they got away with this. I don't know how.
We can't let them get away with this.
How did the ACC or the people at Virginia Tech let that happen? I guess Virginia Tech just thinks we'll beat them anyway, whatever. But
they do.
It is a manageable schedule for Virginia. I think you're going to have to see a big step for Virginia this year, bringing in Chandler Morris at quarterback. But
the guy might be really good.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see it.
Got to take another step here for Virginia. You don't draw any of the big names.
Yeah. So it's going to be fascinating just to see that. And again, Chandler, for those that don't know, was running around Clemson with snot all over his face when I was a player there. So now to see him growing up.
You're old.
I think he was second or third in passing yards and touchdown. Like, he can rip it. He can sling it. He started at Oklahoma, went to TCU. Then, he's one of those guys. He's jumping around trying to find a spot. But I'm glad he's here. I'm excited to see it. And can he be the guy? Calandria is gone. Muskett's, 40 years old. And here comes this guy. Here comes Chandler. So excited to see that, what it looks like. And then finishing with Wake Forest, new head coach, new culture. The guy's leaving, though. A lot of guys that I've known, and some graduated, some in the portal, things of that nature. You do have your unbelievable running back, and certainly that's going to be a thing in Claiborne. You're going to be the piece. You're going to be the guy. And looking at this, seeing that Oregon State game on there is fascinating, but not a ton of expectation for Wake Forest. Excited for Coach, excited for everything he's going to bring, the quarterback development that he has had. But it's a big old uphill battle for Wake Forest and what they're doing this year.
Good news with a new head coach. You open with 4 straight home games. You don't go on the road till October 4th at Virginia Tech, and then you have a back-to-back at Virginia Tech, at Oregon State.
Yeah, should be undefeated probably going into there.
It
has to be undefeated. I know NC State is probably going to be better, but you've got a big chance here. One other thing I forgot to mention, I'm trying to find it really quickly. Somebody plays. Gosh, now I'm obsessing about it. Now I got to find it. Where is it? Somebody plays in the conference, and it's an out-of-conference game.
Oh, one of those, because it's not marked with the little star.
Yeah. It's NC State. NC State and Virginia is an out-of-conference game.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, week 2.
So bizarre.
Wow.
I hate that.
So you're telling me NC State and whoever else they play. They don't play any of the newbies, actually. Yeah. But basically, NC State Pitt is a conference game, and NC State Virginia, that's been played as long as football's existed, is not a conference game. Craziness.
Whatever it takes. Guys, this was fun. Great to break it all down. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Let us know in the comments who do you think got a great Shakeout, I think Syracuse by far and away. I think Florida
Yeah.
State, really difficult. But tell us about your team. Maybe even some win-loss game. That's something we need to do down the road. A little win-loss, maybe go through everybody and just see where they're going to end up. Maybe we do that in August. We'll see when we
Yeah.
finally know who the teams are. But appreciate you guys always.
With the portal, it's a little harder. We're not sure who's going to play.
They don't even know who the quarterback's going to be.
Who knows? Who knows?
Anyway, we say it every episode, but we're both wearing Roback. We love this stuff. Go check out all of their stuff over there. Some new things coming out. KG, I don't know if you saw this. I get bombarded with emails by them. I'm not complaining. It's just a lot. And they just came out with this new Valentine's collection. And one of the polos has roses all over it. And y'all know my little Amelia Rose. I'm gonna have to get one for her, and she'll be my Valentine's date, in the morning and day, and then khaki mac at night. But I got to do that. I got to represent. So go check that out. Use our code GMPod. We're gonna get you 20% off. You take that, run it to the bank, whatever you want to do. And of course, Ingles, always grateful for them and everything they do for us. Also grateful for you guys. Subscribe, jump in, leave some comments. We always appreciate that. But until next time, we'll see y'all.